What's happening, guys? Welcome back to Vertical Football. Welcome back to another episode of the Manchester United Fans Corner. I'm your host, Shegun, and guys, it's great to be back here with you. Guys, it has been an amazing preseason for Man United. 2 games already played against Wrexham and against Rosenborg. So, guys, what we want to do today is to analyze those 2 games to try and see what are the things we are beginning to learn under the games. Because what I decided was that I wasn't going to do an analysis after each game or those first 2 games, that's Wrexham and Rosenborg. What I decided was that let's see how we play those 2 games. Let's learn what have we learned from those 2 games. What are we seeing that we saw last season? What is new? What are they implementing? How are they implementing it? And then we have that body of knowledge. Then we now use that body of knowledge in terms of what they are doing well, what they need to improve upon. We use that body of knowledge to analyze the last 4 preseason matches that remains, because United obviously has played Wrexham, we've played Rosenborg, and now we're going to be playing Atletico Madrid, PSG, I think Leeds, and AC Milan. So once you use that, what have you learned, and then use to analyze the last block of games. And so, guys, it's going to be very interesting. We're going to analyze a lot of things that we've seen, things that we need to improve upon, things that we're doing very, very well, and we need to continue to improve upon it. So, guys, let's jump right into it. Let's analyze the game. Let's analyze what we love, Manchester United. And so, first and foremost, I think let me start by saying that the summer transfer window, summer transfer window is very, very important. Very, very important in the sense that we've come to the end of an era in the Premier League. And this is the way I have seen it since after Pep Guardiola decided he was going to be leaving Man City. I've seen it as the end of an era, because we've had 10 years where, for most of the 10 years, it was Jurgen Klopp of Liverpool, Pep Guardiola of Manchester City that were at the top competing, right? Last 4 years of that 4-year period, we had Arsenal coming to the fold. Arsenal becoming a dominant season, finish, I think, second a number of times, and then obviously won. They finished second, I think, 3 times, and then obviously won last season. So it has always appeared to me as the end of an era when the likes of Klopp is out of the Premier League, the likes of Guardiola is out of the Premier League. These are the 2 big guys that have shown themselves in the last 10 years. And so the question will always be, who is going to dominate the next 10 years? I think that's the way we want to think about it. And I believe that a lot of the business we are doing, I think clubs are going about doing the business they are doing with the mindset of, we want to position ourselves to take hold of that vacuum. Yes, Arsenal has won last season, and that gives them a good foundation to build on it and showcase their dominance for the next 10 years. But other clubs are like, they just won it once, right? It's different from winning Premier League once and, winning a second. Even though, yes, once give you a lot more confidence to do it the second time, do it the third time. But a lot of clubs are going to be looking at that situation that there's a vacuum. Pep is not in this league anymore. And not just that Pep is not in this league anymore, we are also beginning to see that a lot of the core tenets of the Pep Guardiola side that has been dominant for quite a number of years in this 10-year period. The likes of Bernardo Silva has left Man City. The likes of Rodri again is going to leave. There are talks about him going to leave and the likes. So we're going to see that, it's going to be like a new ground, right? And people are going to look at who's going to dominate for the next 10 years. And that's why I believe this summer transfer window is very, very, very important for every club to go out there, do the business you believe can keep you in the stead to dominate at least for most part of the 10 years, right? To be considered for most part of the 10 years. This is the beginning stage of that. And so it's going to be very, 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 very exciting to see how the Premier League unfolds, how the business is being done. But I think this is what makes it a very, very important window. So, guys, let's jump right into the preseason of Man United. In terms of what have we learned? I think we've learned a lot of good things United have done so far in the preseason. Some of them have actually been things we've seen. And some of them are things that we've seen, but we hope that there is more consistency to it. Right? A lot of things are things we've seen, and we're hoping that there's been more consistency to it. Some things are questions in terms of, if this is how we want to approach things, why don't we do things better? Right? So let's enjoy ourselves. Let's jump right into it. The first thing I think we have obviously seen in the preseason is that United maintains a 4-4-2 off the ball. I think 4-4-2 off the ball, mid to low block, compact shape, zonal marking. I think we've seen this last season. And one of the complaints I had last season was, as much as I understand that against Manchester City, against Arsenal, I think those two games, we had a very solid 4-4-2 shape, very compact shape. But I felt that as the game progressed last season, that's when Michael Carrick came on board, I felt that it wasn't as compact as it was at the beginning stage. And so I think the goal for United, the goal for Michael Carrick and his coaching staff would be train it enough. If you this is your defensive shape, train it enough so that at least you can get more consistent, fairly more amount of consistency, a fair amount of consistency, in that shape of the ball. I think it will be very, very nice. A fair amount of consistency throughout the games, because a lot of games are going to happen. And if that's your shape defensively for most part, you need to be able to make it very, very, very solid so that teams don't pass through it like we saw towards the later stages where we saw games like against Everton, we saw games like even against Fulham at some point, we had those games where teams could easily pass through that defensive structure, so make it compact. So we've seen that, and I think not just only that, also we've seen situations in these first two games against Rosenborg and Wrexham where in that shape, when we win the ball, a little bit spacing behind of the attack of the opposition, we are able to do transitional business in the spaces. And I think that's very, very good. I think that's what we've seen. But I think it's not just about transition, because transition also has different forms. It's not just about transition in terms of going to the sides alone. I think I've so much liked the ability of us to transition centrally, to pierce in centrally on the transition. I think that's been very, very good. And I think it's something that we need to keep doing, because obviously it's going to be a very, very important instrument for us going forward. So I think that's the first thing. And we've seen powerful vertical and quick transitions down the center, keeping that 4-4-2 mid to low block shape, but make it more compact, make it more consistent. So the second thing I think we've also seen, which I'm very, very happy about, I think this will be one of the things I'm so much happy about, and I hope it continues, is the build-up structure of Manchester United in these first two games. I won't really say the first game against Wrexham, but especially the first half against Rosenborg in the preseason. I felt that because Rosenborg obviously was a high-pressing side, pressing, counter-pressing, I felt the way United build up through them, I think, is very, very good. One of the things, if you've been watching our content for a long time, one of the things I've always complained about United side is that we don't know how to build up well. Our build-up has not been good. And I think if we can work on this and get this right to build up, it will help us a lot. It will help us in having more control of the game, as reports are saying Michael Carrick wants to do. It will help us in terms of having more of the possession, controlling the dynamics of the game. I think it's very, very good in terms of how we pass through and try to bait the opposition and operate behind the spaces they leave behind. I think it'll be very, very good for us. So I like that against Rosenborg, and I think it's something we're going to be looking at. How do we build up against other sides? And I hope they decide to build up. They have to decide to build up. It's a preseason. You have to make any mistake you want to make in that period. So I expect and I hope that we do as much build up as possible. But I really like the build up in the first half against Rosenborg. Other things we've seen is that on the ball, I think last season, for most part on the ball, for Man United under Michael Carrick, we saw majorly a 3-2-5. Sometimes we saw a 3-2-5. Sometimes a 3-1-6. But I think for against Wrexham, especially because Wrexham was more or less in a low block. Wrexham also was using a 5 at the back formation, because Wrexham was using a 3-4-2-1 shape, and so at their off the ball situation, they had 5 at the back. And I saw that in that low block situation, we saw, for example, Michael Carrick using a 3-1-6. So that was the likes of Evan, Maguire, Euro in that Wrexham game. We saw Santos in the center, and then we saw 6 people in front to create an overload. I think I really like that. And I think that is something we'll be seeing more of if we are able to push teams back and maybe against teams that play a low block. I think we'll be able to see that kind of situation. But I think one of the things that I was also not happy about in that 3-1-6 shape, but maybe it's because of the profiles of players that were not playing that day, I felt that a lot of the things we tried to do in that 3-1-6 shape against Wrexham was centrally and not making use of the wings as much. But I know obviously when the likes of Cunha is around, when the likes of Amad Diallo is around, even Mbeumo gets his fitness, I believe we'll be able to use the sides more. So it's not just about try to do centrally. That will be good, right? But also try to do it at the side. So, and in that 3-1-6 shape against Wrexham, we also saw that Michael Carrick obviously use a 3 number 10s, which is also very good. And that's one of the symbols of that situation. But not just with the 3 number 10s, we saw more visibly the triangles trying to play it in close and tight spaces. We saw that, but it was majorly designed to attack centrally. And so we saw 3 number 10s in that game. I think we had the likes of Fletcher, right, being one of the number 10s. We saw Zexi dropping back at certain points to join to be like number 10, which we also saw his position in the Rosenborg game as well, in terms of being able to play that as that number 10, which is also very, very good. And we also saw the likes of Mason Mount leave the midfield as one of the pivots to join in. And so we'll be maybe expecting that during the season, and how it goes is that maybe one of the likes of Tillemans, maybe the likes of Kobe Mainu, maybe the likes of Santos, depending on who their partner is, right? Would join obviously to become the third number 10. So I think we really saw that. But what I just felt is it should have used more of the sites in that game. But I think it's something that we'll look at it as we go on. Maybe against Atletico Madrid, maybe against PSG, we'll try to see, if we see those shape again, and we'll try to see how they approach it, if they approach it better. So the next point that I think we're very, very impressed with in this preseason game so far, I think for me has been the way positional rotations. I think that's what I would say, the positional rotations, and I think especially I would say against Wrexham, I didn't see a lot of positional rotations. I think the major ones we saw in the positional rotations was Dogu entering centrally, Zexi dropping back. That's what we saw. But against Rosenborg, I think we saw more. And especially we saw more because of the dynamics of the likes of Shelisi in the first half. For example, we saw Shelisi, because Shelisi obviously is a winger, and when we analyzed Shelisi months ago, you remember I said he's someone that can play in that hole, and I was very happy to see him in that hole, in that zone 14. And how we saw that Shelisi, could interject to come out to create an overload with Mbeumo on the right hand side. Shelisi also could drop back into the midfield, touch the ball, move into the space. It's not just in the zone 14 waiting. He has the ability to come out of the zone 14 and do certain things. Also, we saw Shelisi as certain position as a right centre back, right? So right centre back in terms of creating different dynamics, pulling defenders, pulling midfielders out of position to create certain dynamics. And I think I really like that, but it's just what we've seen for the first time. But we expect, that's why we're doing the analysis. We expect to see more of it, right? We expect to see more of it as we proceed. And so that's why it's good to highlight it to us now, so that when we are watching the games, we can maybe notice this movement, notice these dynamics, notice those things we are talking about. So I think I really like the positional rotations, and I believe we're going to be seeing more positional rotations when the season starts, if they continue in this trend, because the likes of Cunha obviously is not an out-and-out winger, so Cunha obviously can move in centrally. We saw Cunha during the World Cup dropping deep into midfield to collect the ball. We've seen situations, even we've seen Mbeumo, so Mbeumo can become a striker, can come back to the wing. We've seen Amad Diallo, so can drop deep, to be right back zone to drag people out. So I think that we're going to be seeing a lot. We see Bruno Fernandes also, even the time on with Michael Carrick, we saw Bruno not playing always all the time as a number 10. He going to the left, he going to the right, and playing from that side, putting in crosses, trying to do certain things and causing overload in those places. And we also see the likes of Tillemans also can do that in terms of side. We've seen Santos. So I believe there are a lot of, what I'm trying to say is I believe there are a lot of good things that we can see. That's what the profiles of players we have that can have positional rotations, right? Positional rotations in certain zones. So I think it's something that we need to watch more of and to understand. So I think there are also things that we need to improve upon. We need to improve upon it. And I think the first thing for me is that we've not had high press. Even if I understand that, yes, I've said it before, quite all right, that we've not had a high press. And I think what we will see is that our mid-block situation, we've been in a mid-block most parts. But if you watch in the 2 games, which I believe is something that I've not seen the consistency in the Rosenborg and the Wrexham game, firstly, and the Rosenborg game, is that our mid-block is a mid-block. We're not doing a high press, but our mid-block is always in a 4-2-4 shape. So in terms of when we are trying to, in the mid-block per se, trying to, stop them from moving in, we are in a 4-2-4. So there are 4 players in front, the 2 midfielders move closer to them, and then the 4 at the back. But we'll come to that discussion as we proceed. But the fact is, we are not doing a high press. And sometimes when you want to be a controlling side, you want to be a side that has control of the game, most part is best for you to high press the opponent in their own zone. You can recover the ball in their own zone and cause them havoc there, because you don't want a situation. But I think these are the things we had that were issues last season, was the fact that there were some games where we allowed the opponent to have more uncontested touches on the ball in the middle of the park. And when you are sitting in the mid block, the opponent has more chance to tap the ball, and they might get more rhythm by tapping the ball. But if you high press them, you block their rhythm, they're not able to pass the ball as they want. Also, these are the question is he going to be mid block all the time? And if he's going to be mid block all the time with Michael Carrick's team next season, how then do we want to get control? That would be exciting to watch in terms of how then do we want to have that kind of dominant control? Because obviously, when you want to have control, you want to pin them back, you want to pin your opponent back, you also be trying to play a high line in that kind of situation, right? Because you want to pin them back, you want to play a high line. How then do we deal with that? Because if you're even high pressing, you have to do a high line. So when you are with the ball, so you need to also do a high line. So on the ball and off the ball, you need to play in their half. And as you're playing in the half of your opponent, you're also doing a high line. So these are the things that we really want to watch. But what we are saying is the 4-2-4 mid-block situation. But I want to see how can we get control when we're not doing a high press, when we're not going 1v1. Because a lot of things we've done also, for most parts, has been zonal, right? Has been zonal. Off the ball has been zonal. A little bit 1v1s when we are trying to in that mid-block situation. But we want to look at it in terms of how do we get more control when we're not doing the high pressing, when we're not going totally 1v1 in those situations. So I think that would be very, very exciting to see. Another thing I believe we also need to do, and I think that was highlighted more in the Rosenborg game, first half of the Rosenborg game, was the fact of our ball retention. I think it needs to get better. I think, but obviously I want to watch this ball retention part, because I know that when the likes of Tielemans, Bruno Fernandes, Kobe Minu, even when Santos gets his rhythm, I believe we should be able to have more ball retention, because I felt against the Rosenborg game, especially the first half, I felt there were certain moments where we could have, the right decision there for a team that wants to have control would have been to hold the ball and circulate the ball a bit and get that rhythm and dynamics. When you have not had the ball for a couple of minutes, Rosenborg is having the ball, and then you have the ball back, it shouldn't be just, when it's quick, that might be a transitional mindset, right? And that's what I saw a lot of time in the first half against Rosenborg. So it should be more of, we have the ball sometimes, let's pass it, let's build that rhythm together, let everybody touch the ball, let's use the short passes to build that momentum of possession style, and then we can now go and do amazing things, really. So I think we're good. I hope we're going to see a lot of more touches in terms of circulating the ball, to also pin the opponent back, and to have this kind of situations we want to have where they are struggling for their lives when we push them back. So I think another thing again is in certain moments where we had opportunity for rest defense, I think we have to say to ourselves that Maguire will be a big issue. I think Maguire will be a big issue, because when I watched, especially the Rosenborg game, I saw certain moments when he was on the pitch, Maguire, I saw certain moments where the positioning of Maguire in the rest defense was not good. I think it was not good. And I think it's something that we have to look at it and say, okay, and there was a moment I can clearly remember, like it was yesterday, where everyone was here, Euro was here. They were in that situation of a rest defense, but Maguire was behind them. So the reaction time of Maguire wasn't as fast. And I think we've seen situations even last season where we are in high press and he, not being on the same line with his teammates, created opportunities for the opposition to capitalize on. So I think it's going to be a big concern. Also, I believe that another thing also that I think we need to improve upon, which I've seen, which is also going to watch, is that I feel Maguire takes a lot more time on the ball. This central back in that on the ball shape, which for most part as Maguire, I think it takes a lot of time on the ball. I feel the kind of touches it takes, I think it should be given to a deep line playmaker to have that ball. And I say, for example, when we have a Santos there, why not to give the ball to Santos? Let Santos be the one to dictate the game. I feel sometimes the tempo of the game, when we are trying to build up, or when we're on the ball trying to build up, I think the tempo of the game mostly rests with our defenders, not the deep line playmaker. So I think that's something that we need to change in terms of Maguire making certain jumps into certain zones that he should not be. And when he makes those jump, he turns back, there's no way to go, he then passes back. The question is, why didn't you just give the deep line playmaker or the other midfielder to do something with it. So I think those are the things we need to improve upon. But ultimately, I believe we are beginning to learn some things about what Michael Carrick is trying to do, and that's why we did this episode, so that we can know what is going on, and so we can use this as a template to analyze other games that are going to come. Because as I said earlier, we're going to be having 4 more preseason games, which we'll be doing the 5 things after each game to now bring together the clear picture of what has been consistent in what they are trying to do, which we might see when the season starts, or what was just a one-off that we might not see again. So can let me have your opinion on this. This is what I just said we should discuss a bit in terms of the preseason so far. Wrexham, Rosenborg game. What have we learned about Michael Carrick's structure? I know you have your own opinions about it. So let's have that discussion in the comment section. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Ultimately, don't forget to share. Until I see you next time, I am my humble self, Shegun. Bye.